I'm Jamie Court, J-A-M-I-E-C-O-U-R-T, and I'm president of Consumer Watchdog. With me is Cody Rosenfield, our researcher on gas and other issues. We are here today, unfortunately, as we go into Labor Day, because the Golden State gouge has grown significantly. The gap between what Californians pay for their gasoline and what Americans pay for their gasoline continues to widen to historic proportions. You'll see the chart right here that hopefully is also available on capturing in the periscope we're doing right now. You can see ever since February, we have seen more than $1 a gallon difference between U.S. and California prices. That gap, if you have the petroleum industry's own numbers, should not be more than 20 cents, maybe 25 cents. As we go into this Labor Day weekend, California drivers are paying 88 cents more than the U.S. average for gasoline, and that accounts for a higher tax differential in California. So take out the tax difference, and Californians are paying an extra the 88 cents. The 88 cents doesn't account for the tax difference; it is built in. But when we looked at the gouging gap, which we're going to show you in a second, the gouging gap difference, which is right now over $5 billion, $5.3 billion more that U.S. drivers have paid, California drivers have paid, accounts for a tax differential. So the 88 cents, of the 88 cents, we can say about 20 cents is potentially justified, maybe 25 cents, according to the petroleum industry's own numbers. Everything above that is pure profit for the oil refiners. So we're looking at $5.4 billion more paid by Californians at the pump since February, when the price spike began, adjusting for the tax differential between the U.S. and California drivers. That is historic. We had in August alone nearly $1 billion more paid by Californians at the pump after adjusting for taxes than U.S. drivers. And that Golden State gouge is all a result of, next slide please, low inventories, chronically low inventories in this state, created by oil refiners themselves who are responsible for having ample inventories. And if you look at this chart created by the California Energy Commission, you will see that since last August, oil refiners have kept us running on empty. Then when a refinery goes down, there's such scarcity in the gas supply, the price goes through the roof. And despite you'll see when the February Torrance explosion took place, we were already running on very, very low inventories, and they got even lower. We had a blip in May or June of ships coming in with imports for gasoline, but gas prices didn't drop because the oil refiners, who control the price at 85% of their branded gas stations, kept prices 30 cents higher there than at the independent gas stations. So they artificially use their market power, the oil refiners, to keep prices high, even when we had a temporary import. And then on July 1, everyone expected the Torrance refinery to open, and there were no imports. And inventories again fell below this band. The blue band on this chart is the 5-year normal inventory band. So that red line shows we are chronically under that band. The oil refiners, Torrance or no Torrance, are keeping us running on too low an inventory. And that's true even after July 1. All summer, as Californians needed their fuel, exports went out of California, imports didn't come in, and refineries that were supposed to come back online didn't. The fact that Exxon refused to explain exactly when its refinery was going to come back online created havoc in this market. Everyone was expecting a big shot in the arm in supplies, and so they didn't have imports. And instead, what we have is historic $4 price spikes in July that have continued through the summer. Oil refiners have so manipulated this market through every trick in the book that gas station owners don't change their price very much. Because every time an import comes in, it should drop the price, but the station owners are concerned it won't. And so they have resisted a volatile wholesale market price, and they've kept prices pretty much right around $4. It's dropping a dime here, a dime there, but pretty much gas prices are staying close to $1 different. That's all profits for the oil refiners. Cody Rosenfield is going to take us through this gouging gap and exactly what we're paying compared to American and why, and what the export situation in California looks like, which is, I think, one of the most tragic situations that while we are allegedly having, according to the oil refiners, huge problems with supply, the ships keep leaving the state to foreign countries from our refineries with refined fuel, not crude oil, refined fuel. If we're having supply problems, why are we shipping fuel to other nations? It just doesn't make sense. So, Cody, you want to summarize some of that research?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. My name is Cody Rosenfield. I'm going to talk a little bit about this gouging gap Jamie just spoke of. Evan, if you would switch to the next slide. What we're looking at here is the amount of money Californians have paid due to the higher price we pay in California over the rest of the nation. And it amounts to $5.3 billion. And it's based on our consumption in California and the difference in price between the United States and California. And so as you can see, this is a huge number. And if you'll go to the next slide, Evan, you'll see that just in August alone, we paid almost $1 billion more for our gasoline than we should be paying. And as the next slide will show, each California driver has paid $220 since February because of these high prices we're paying in the state, and they're not justified. And one of the main reasons that prices are so high, as Jamie mentioned, are the exports leaving California. And California is still shipping refined product out of the state. December of 2014, refiners exported more gasoline out of the West Coast to foreign nations than ever in history. And as this next slide will show, we're actually tracking 6 ships right now that have filled up or are filling up over the last week and a half with California refined product to go to foreign nations. And this right here is the, as we're looking at the Hafnia Crux, who can fill up 15 million gallons of product just at a single shot. And between these 6 ships that we're watching, they fill up to 80 million gallons of gasoline. So that if they're filled with gasoline, that's almost 2 days of California's supply. And since we have so little supply in the state, it's absurd that any refiner will be exporting product because prices are so high right now. I'm going to return it to Jamie. Thank you.
If we've gone through all the ships, you'll see, I'm going to just go through all the ships to the solutions. We're paying, just to be clear, $221 per California driver extra since February because of the gouging gap in California with the rest of the nation. That $221 extra per California driver already accounts for the tax differential nationally. So it's pure gasoline prices. And of those gasoline prices, we're seeing huge profits from the refiners. Tesoro had its best second quarter ever of when it's the second largest refiner. Chevron had its best first half year from oil refining ever, and 54% of its refineries in California. The fourth biggest refiner, Valero, had an 1,100% increase in profit. So it's all profit. We need some solutions, and this is what we've put forth along with our friend NextGen Climate founder Tom Steyer as a potential ballot solution. We need to require oil refiners to disclose profits because we only know from some of the refiners what their profits on oil refining in California is, and it's huge. We need to require advance notice of planned refinery outages, and we need to require refiners to maintain inventory levels that are sufficient to meet demand. This is all about oil refiners keeping us in the dark and keeping us running on empty. We've also want to increase penalties for oil companies illegally shorting the market, whether they're working together or not. And we think they should have a refinery inventory plan they file with the state that they stick to. That would mean they can't export fuel when the refineries are down to other countries from our refineries. It would mean that they can't go down as a refinery without permission of the state if it's not needed. This solution is something that Tom Steyer and NextGen and Consumer Watchdog have asked the legislature to take up. We have 8 days left in Sacramento in the legislative session, and we're talking about last-minute legislation to allow imports of kangaroo leather. Not happening. The solution is not happening in Sacramento this year, which means we're committed to moving forward towards a ballot solution. We are going to do the research necessary through opinion research, and the initiative has to be filed in October for the November 2016 ballot. And that's what we're moving towards. This is a short-term solution in many ways because it just creates fairness and transparency in the market. Oil refiners should have to open their books and justify why their refineries are down, why their supply is not ample. This is just transparency. So maybe the ballot measure will get Sacramento moving when they come back in January, but we have to go forward. But there is another solution, next slide please, to this gasoline crisis, and it's actually a long-term solution. It's SB 350. This is the bill in Sacramento that oil refiners are now attacking with millions of dollars in TV ads that will reduce petroleum use in half by 2030. So in 15 years, the plan is to reduce petroleum use by 50%. Now, why is that going to bring down gas prices? Why? SB 350 will bring down gas prices because it takes half of the California oil refiners' market share away from them. It takes away half of the need for the California gasoline supply, which the oil refiners can't seem to maintain. So by taking half of the supply and half of the market share, we take away from oil refiners the power to keep low inventories and drive higher prices in California. This cuts oil refiner market share by 50%, and it alleviates the supply shortages. And yet, go to the next slide, Evan, oil refiners are literally spending millions of dollars on television and radio with ads claiming higher costs at the pump from SB 350. Nothing could be further from the truth. Anyone who has watched the gouging that we have faced since February because of low inventories and high profits in California can see very clearly that taking away the low inventory power that oil refiners have by reducing petroleum use cuts the power of oil refiners to charge us too much. Basically, oil refiners have Californians over a barrel, and we're going to take away, with SB 350, a lot of those barrels, replacing them with EV vehicles, alternative fuels, by the way, technologies that are increasingly cost effective, as well as good for our environment. So I think the oil refiners, Golden State gouge this spring, which is historic in nature. We have never seen this wide a gap with America. It's never been over 80 cents before 2015. The historic Golden State gouge proves the need to get rid of half of our petroleum supply in 15 years. And it shows that the oil refiners' claims are nonsense. Nonsense. And the public should not be fooled. Let's go to the next slide if we have one. ExxonMobil in Torrance, which has been pointed to as the cause of all these problems. This is a refinery that has been offline since February and is single-handedly being blamed for Californians paying so much for their gas. In LA, drivers paying even more than Californians. The gap in LA is $1 with the rest of America. It's 88 cents around the rest of the state. But with LA, we're talking $1 difference with America. And it's because this refinery went offline, not only because they went offline, but because when they went offline and our inventories were low, Exxon said, we will be back up this summer by July 1. Or people at news agencies like Bloomberg who talked to Exxon reported that they'd be up by July 1. The lack of information in this marketplace stopped all the imports coming into the state on July 1. And as a result, because of the darkness around the true information, which is that Exxon's not going to be back up till this fall, at best, we've been suffering to the tune of another $900 million paid at the pump in August, and $1 billion more paid in July, because we didn't have adequate information about Exxon and when it was going to bring that refinery up. And that's why this ballot measure addresses the darkness in this market, the lack of light. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. And as we move forward on setting standards for global greenhouse emissions for the world at a Paris conference that's coming up in about a month, we're going to do that if we pass this legislation in the next 8 days in Sacramento, SB 350. We also need to inoculate against market manipulation by Exxon and other oil refiners by keeping us in the dark and driving up prices. As we move towards getting off petroleum, which will reduce the ability for oil refiners to manipulate supplies, we also need sunshine. And so that's why this ballot measure that's being discussed for November 2016 is so critical. And we still hope the legislature will pass it in January, but if not, we're moving towards a solution. So as Labor Day drivers fill up and they talk to their friends around the rest of the country and family around the rest of the country about why they're paying $1 more, sometimes $1.50 more than the rest of America, they should know that there are solutions in the works to fix it, both long-term and short-term. And they should remember when they're paying that extra premium right now, exactly why we need to take away this monopoly from the oil industry and start to bring in alternate fuels and alternative fuel vehicles. And they should also know that in the shorter term, we're hoping within a year that the darkness of this marketplace has a lot more light. Any questions?
You know, the oil companies are saying that California gasoline costs more to refine because of the unique requirements for emissions. Mm-hmm. And that helps to explain the difference. Your response?
The cost of refining the cleaner burning fuel by the industry's own estimate is 10 cents a gallon. And that was an estimate actually that the Air Resources Board put in 1999. The cost of the cap and trade program, the carbon credits according to the state of California right now, is 10 cents a gallon. That's a 20-cent difference with America. And we have now an 88-cent difference with America if you're a Californian, over $1 difference if you're living in Los Angeles and what you pay for gas. So by the industry's own numbers, taxes, the 2 environmental improvements we've had to clean our air and to save our earth account for 20 to 25 cent difference with America. And we're paying $1 more in LA. So the math doesn't add up. The best math is, take a look at what happened over this Golden State gouge period since February. We've looked at the first and second quarters, and oil refiner profits that we know about have tripled. Gas prices have tripled. Crude oil prices have been cut in more than half. We have historically low crude oil prices, historically high oil refiner profits, because whereas crude oil, the main ingredient in our gasoline, fell in price to below $50 a barrel, now it's under 40. The oil refiners simply made the money grab and took the money for themselves. And the mechanism they do it is by keeping us on very low inventories. Take away that power and you drive down fuel costs. And there's a couple ways to do it. One is the sunlight of a transparency initiative. Another way to do it is long-term, take away our dependence on these oil refiners and mix the gasoline supply with EV vehicles and alternative fuel vehicles and incentives for them. And that's going to drive down costs for consumers, both who pay for gasoline and ultimately the EV technologies are becoming increasingly cost effective, and the technology is allowing us to go further and further on EV vehicles, which is the real problem. The fuel cell, the battery, has to become cost effective so that we can go a couple hundred miles on it. That's going to happen within a matter of years. It's already happened. And that's going to displace the oil refiners. The reason oil refiners are spending millions on TVNs right now to kill SB 350 is because it's killing their profits. I mean, they're not going to be able to keep us over a barrel like this. And we're taking away half their market share. But by doing that, we're also going to be saving people a lot of money. This hopefully will be the last summer we had to pay $5.4 billion because the oil refiners kept us running on too low an inventory. I doubt if there was a ballot measure in November 2016, which we're working towards, that oil companies are going to pull this trick on voters right before that ballot measure. Thank you.
I got one more question. If you look at the cost of it, so you said it's 88 cents a gallon, right?
88 cents for California.
88 cents for California.
Yeah, but the retail price in LA is
$1 more.
$1 more.
Okay, let's say $1, and then you got tax differential of 20 cents.
No, tax differential is only 9 cents.
9 cents. Okay, so now you're down to, let's say 90.
I believe it's 9 cents because we just had the 6 cent decrease in excise tax. It used to be 15 cents. So we have 9 cents there. We have 10
cents more than the rest of the nation.
Yeah, 9 cents more than the rest of the nation. Cap and trade is 10 cents, which is a hard number from the California Energy Commission. I don't think should be any other difference. Because it's
Well, then there's the cost of the.
but you said, okay, the cost of carbon. I sat on this Attorney General gas pricing task force that looked at this. In '99, it may have been 10 cents when the refineries were retrofitted to deal with the extra blending. Now, that's been amortized off the cost of the improvements in those refineries. There really shouldn't be more than a penny to 2 pennies difference.
But arguably 10.
Well, no, the Air Resource Board said in '99 it was 10 cents. But I believe it's, most of the people on that task force believe that after the amortization for that one-time investment, we're talking about 1 to 2 cents. It's really 20 cents. If you want to push it to the upper limit, it would be 29 cents.
So one more question. The oil companies would say, this is a global commodity. We should have every right to sell it to whoever wants to buy it, and we should be able to make as much money as we can.
Well, that's how the system's working right now, and we're getting gouged in California. And so, we've done very well in California cleaning up our air with a very low cost per gallon. We've also seen that when oil refiners have the ability to have an isolated market like California, both because of the lack of pipelines in and because of our clean burning fuel, they will take advantage of that situation absent more sunlight. By the way, Washington State is suffering from unusually high gasoline prices as well. I think Oregon's in the similar boat, but not as bad. The West Coast as a whole has it bad. California in particular. And it's because the oil refiners do have us over this barrel. And the reality is the oil refiners don't want to acknowledge, which their profit reports acknowledge, that because the crude oil prices have dropped, they've been able to make up much of that profit on our gasoline. So they love to blame environmental standards, but the math doesn't work this year. When you have, by their own math, as much as 30 cents, but no more, going towards a differential in state taxes and clean fuel evaluations, and then you see that we're paying $1 more in LA, we pay as much as $1.30 more, it doesn't add up. And then you see ships moving out of the harbor with refined products. If the problem is we have such a scarce commodity in California, our clean burning fuel, why are we seeing up to 80 million gallons or 80 million gallons of some type of refined product made in our refineries going out of the state? Shouldn't those refineries be for Californians? So it's in the advantage of the oil companies to keep us running this way, and it's going to continue to be until we have sunlight through this ballot measure proposal to force them to open their books and justify everything they do, and until we have a long-term solution which reduces our reliance on petroleum. As most from a consumer perspective, SB 350 is a big win. Take out the environmental aspects, and that's why the oil refiners are really distorting the cost issue in their claims, and that's why they're not acknowledging that it's paid for by the oil industry in these ads. They're saying it's paid for by the Drivers Alliance.
California Drivers
Yeah, you see an ad from the California Drivers Alliance, that's wholly paid for by the Chevrons, of the Tesoros, for the Shells. This is the oil companies. The money's there, and they're hiding because once the public knows it's the oil companies, they say, they're lying, but no one knows. So we're hoping the legislature gets the job done in the next 8 days. As I understand it, they're close on SB 350. We're very disappointed they didn't take up our proposal to open the books on the refiners. Maybe that'll come in January, but we can't wait. So we're moving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.